Hi everyone and welcome back. So this is part 2 of our previous video. That was part 1 where we created a baseline structure for the Prisma APIs. We wanted to create a blog APIs where we have the entities, users, comments, tag, uh, articles, all those entities. And now we are going to use Prisma client APIs to run all different kind of database operations. Before that, let's take a look on some documentation. And here we have Prisma models. This is how we are defining the relations in the Prisma model. You can see the user and the post that we have already done, like one-to-many kind of relationship where user can write multiple posts. So this is how you will define the association. Here author ID will be a foreign key in the post table referring to the primary key ID of user table. Okay, and then I wanted to see what Prisma client API provides, like simple CRUD operation where you can do insert, update, delete, like create, read, update, delete. So how, first of all, how we do create. So prisma.user.create, I can zoom it a little bit, and then let's say I wanted to do something more than that. So here inside create, you can just define the post, right? And you can also include the post, like user has a post relationship, so you can also associate post there. So it will create a user first and then it will create a post. Create multiple records, you can do a create many. So the first API we can understand like prisma.user.prisma.entity_name.create, right? And then there is another API in the Prisma client, create many. Okay, so now if you wanted to read, like if you wanted to do find unique, and this is the where clause. These queries are kind of similar which what you have done in the SQLite or the TypeORM. You are passing the where clause where email equal to this, and it is doing find unique. Find unique by ID. It's like find one by ID. Okay, and here, like this is the composite key we have, and here you can do composite find, like prisma.find unique based on the year quarter, right? And here you can specify the parameters. So it's like compound ID. You wanted to do where clause with year and the quarter, right? And here you can specify the unique constraint time period ID. So the same constraint name, because here I have seen the lot of alias happening in the Prisma model also. Like here I put the unique constraint name as the time period ID. So I can specify the same where time period ID equal to this, right? So to retrieve the time period by the unique qualifier, we can also use this custom identifier name. Get all records, it's like find many, specify null, specify empty where close, find first. Now here you can see the nesting. You can see prisma.user.find where post had some likes greater than 100 and order by descending, right? So it's like some kind of filtering is happening. Here ends with find many where email ends with prisma.io, like we do like query. Similarly here we can actually do starts with, ends with, and then find by multiple fields. Like you can also do the nesting of and or, like SQL queries is something like select star from this table where this equal to this and this equal to this and this equal to that, right? So here what we are doing, this is an array. That means this is an OR condition. Do we have SQL generated for it? It's like find many where name equal to name starts with E and profile views greater than 0. I think these both clause are AND clause. And so what do we have here is these two clause are inside OR. So it's the query will be like this: select star from user where name starts with E or profile views greater than 0 and role equals to admin. So this is the AND clause for both. This is the OR clause. OR clause means the outside is the OR and inside these two properties we have AND clause. Okay, so here also you can do select. Okay, this is the condition where clause, and I wanted to select only particular columns from the select query. like this is going to return only email and name. Okay, I think we can also get the CLI output for some of the queries. Here you can see what it is going to return. Here we are doing email, and then this is like user and the post. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to get the email, and the post also should be there with likes true. So user has posts, right? User already has a relationship with the post, so you can actually do the nesting select, right? I mean, posts is not inside a user entity, but here we are actually fetching. It's like a lazy loading where you can actually define the, if the ref association is already there, you can get the data from another table inside the same query. So email, posts, these are the likes because we are selecting only the likes for these two records. Okay, here you can also include true, like if you wanted to include the another table data in the same query, like prisma.user.find many, if role is admin, return those and also include the post for those all users, right? So what it is doing, you can see it is returning the posts empty, whatever the post this user has submitted. So you don't need to do much of thing if you wanted to include the foreign key table data inside the original query. Then simple update, this is the where clause and this is the data. Simple. Using update multiple record, update many, this is simple update and this is the update many. Then we have upsert, right? So what it will do is upsert, if the record doesn't exist, it will create it, otherwise it will update it. Delete, simple delete, and then there is a delete many. Delete all the records, you can just do delete many, keep the clause empty, that means it is going to delete all the records. Delete with where clause. Okay, so this is all about the Prisma client APIs, and we are going to use these all different methods: delete, delete many, update, update many, find, find many, find unique, insert, insert many. All these Prisma client APIs while writing the APIs. Here, the last thing we can talk about the select and the filtering. Like this is all about select and filtering. So here you can specify the filter condition, which we have already seen these kind of queries. And you can also do aggregation, pagination and all. Relation queries, if you wanted to fetch the data of a relationship table, you can do includes API or the select API, right? This is called the eager loading, means while fetching the primary key table data, you wanted to fetch the reference table data. This is eager loading. I mean, most of the time we don't wanted to fetch the data from the foreign key table, but eager loading means from the primary source return the data in the nested object. So there is a select API or the includes API. There is select API and includes API for that. And we have a couple of more things: pagination, aggregation, grouping, transactions, null, undefined, a lot of things. We will come to that when we are writing our APIs through these CRUD operations, articles, users, comments, tag. For those, we already have created the models in our code base. So now let's create our application. So we already have index.ts, everything is set up. We just have empty folders. Now we can start creating Express server. So first of all, we can import Express, and we are writing Express TypeScript. So we are importing Express from Express, couple of more modules. I mean, we have used this kind of code many times, so I will not focus much on explaining things. We got the Express instance. Then we are going to use some couple of middlewares like chorus middleware, cross origin resource sharing. For that we have to import this. Okay, and we have to import routes. Routes we will create inside the routes folder. Let's say inside routes we have routes.ts file, and then that's it. So we will enable all the middlewares, like we can use a body parser. I mean, body parser is now Deprecated, we can use express one only, like simply express.json. This is same as the body parser, registering body parser, app.use, and we will register all our routes. This is how we do it. And we can also set the public directory, and this is express.static, the directory name. I mean, if you have any public directory, you can specify that here, and then app.get, just a simple hello world kind of. So we have a request is of type request, and then we have response, which is of type response, and here we are just saying response.json. Here we can set status with just a simple message, API is running. It's kind of a health check endpoint, and we can import request and response from express. Cannot find. Okay, this is a callback. So simple, we have created express app here, closing this and that, and we have to listen to a particular port. We can also use a Swagger UI, like if you have a swag, I mean, that depends on us. If you wanted to write a Swagger YML, Swagger UI from Swagger UI Express, and then we can actually write a document endpoint that will be app.use API docs. It will serve this Swagger document, and now finally we also need to import the Swagger document. This is nothing but a JSON file, Swagger doc from, let's say we have document. We can create a document actually outside. So let's say we have a JSON file there. This is just optional. If you wanted to expose your APIs through Swagger YML, then this will expose all your documents from there, and we will just create a simple sample document there inside Swagger YML. Inside document we can put empty Swagger JSON. So here we have, okay, now we need to just start the application by listening to a particular port, app.listen, and we can also add on to some error handler middleware, right? So we can simply say app.use, and this is just a middleware function which takes error request response, right? And what we wanted to say here is just like expose the error codes. If we are not able to intercept any other error, then return 500. Okay, now we can just listen to the port app.listen with the callback onto a particular port. I'm just doing a copy paste because this is, we have done this many times. And HTTP exceptions. So HTTP exceptions we can create. Let's say inside utils I can create http.ts. It's nothing but an HTTP exception. We can create our own custom extends error. So this is just a simple HTTP exception class which we are exporting from here, and then here we will import that HTTP exception. This we can import. Next function is part of express. Now we need to define the routes. Okay, like we are going to have a user routes, article routes, comments routes, and tag routes. So inside routes, let's create routes.ts file. So index.ts, here we have routes.ts. Right, currently it's empty. We will use the express router to define all the routing. Router from express, and from this we are going to export default router instance of router, and we are using, we are just putting global prefix to all the routes API. Okay, and now I can create API router, const API equal to router, and here we can say router.use when we are talking about all these things. So I can have like all the other controllers. So I'm just having auth controller. So because I'm going to create a user APIs first, which is like create user, registered user, login user, and all these things. And I can create auth controller, import auth controller from. So we have to go outside, and then there is a controllers, and then there we will create auth dot controllers. That's it. Similarly, we can create other controllers, and we can create chain here like app.use some other controller, let's say article controller, right? And here I can specify that this is just another controller. From, let's say I just put another name. Okay, that's it. So here I have created my routes, and then we need to move to the controllers, and inside controllers we can create our auth.controller, auth.controllers.ts. And similarly we also need one more controller just for an example, article.controller. So inside controller, add new file, article.controller.ts. Okay, now auth controller is all about some APIs related to the user. So how we define the routes and all these things, right? So here const router, I'm creating the instance of router here, and I will export the router from this file. All the controllers will follow the same syntax. This is same express application. I'm not doing anything fancy here, and we can get the router from express, import router from express. Other than that, we will also need a request response, and let's say next function. Okay, now we can define all our methods here. What all methods we have? Router dot, here you can put get, put, post, delete. Router dot post, let's say my first route is create users, which is, you can call it as a sign up. Okay, and here async, here I have a same request is of type request. Let's say request response and next. There is a callback, and here we will do stuff. Okay, and we can specify the type. Request is of type request, response is of type response, next is of type next function. So it's kind of a template, we will use it everywhere. And here I always prefer try catch because it's a sync function, can throw something on us and we have to catch it, and if it is throwing, then just next error, because we already have a middleware to catch this thing. and here we are talking about users. So first of all, I will get something from request.body, and then let's say I can call create user, and here create user, I have to define this method, and I will be passing request dot body. Inside that body we are passing user object. Okay, now this create user, we can create a service. Let's say I'm creating auth service here, auth service.ts. There we will define this method create user, so it completes the end-to-end flow. I will just import this thing, import create user from, go outside, inside services, auth service.ts. There we will define it. So if we are able to create the user, we got the user object. So what we can say is response dot JSON, and I will just return this user object, and this is async await, right? So create user is the method we have to define inside a service, and that will deal what to do with this request body. We can also do the join validations for this payload, that okay, all the required attributes are available in the payload, and then only you will be able to create that. It's like simple express MVC app, which you might have already done it. So I'm just not focusing much on the logic part. And here inside auth service, we can create our method, like what is this, export const create user, and it's async method, and you will get the input object. Input object is of some type, any, let's say, and we will add some typings later once we receive this thing. So create user, we are already exporting this async input. We can create some models in our models folder. Let's say the register input is our first model, so inside that, or you can call it as auth.model.ts. Inside that we can create a simple register input, export interface, and in this payload we wanted to have email is of type string. It's like an interface. Username is of type string, password is another attribute, then we have image, it's an optional of type string, bio is an optional of type string. Okay, and this register input is something which we can use inside auth service, considering that this is the kind of input we are going to get. And now once we receive all the parameters, what we are going to do, we are going to just use the Prisma client and store this data. So here const.email, we can just say input.email, you can do trim, you can sanitize it, and all these things you can do. Same I can do for username and password. So these all things are required. I'm just worried about only the required things. Okay, then we can do the join validation and all these things, and then finally we can start creating the user. First of all, we need to create a hash password of this user, because we are sending the password in the body. So we can use the bcrypt library. For that we have to import the bcrypt from bcrypt.js, because we have to create a bcrypt version of the password. So here I can do bcrypt dot hash, and we are passing the password, because this we are going to generate the hash for the password. Hash password we are going to save, const user, and now we can just simply do is const user Prisma. We have imported from the Prisma client. Await Prisma dot user dot, we have all the methods. I'm talking about create here. You can see these are the Prisma client API: create many, find first, find many, update many, and do we have something like save? No. And then we can see all these things: group, update many, find, delete many, delete, create many, create, count, aggregate. Here we are talking about create. So inside create you have to pass this object, and inside this object you have two things: data, that is actually your payload, and if you wanted to select a particular things after your insertion is done, you can specify it here. So inside data you have username, you have email, you have password, which is the hash password. We have converted that, and let's ignore the optional properties. And once that is done, we can return email. You have to specify them as a like this: email true, username true, because I don't want it to return the password which has been saved. So I'm just returning only email and the username once the insert is done. And after everything is done, what we can do is we have to return the token, right? So this is the user object, and we can generate the token. So we can call the method generate token, or let's keep it like this: on sign up we are going to return only the user object, but when you are doing login we will generate the token if the login is successful, right? So now in the same way we can create our login, and we can use that login from our controller method. So here export const login, and here the payload will be, let's say, any, and we inside this we are getting the email and the password. These are the two attributes we are getting. We will add the proper typings and all. Here we are just talking about the logic, right? Now here instead of prisma.user.create we will do find unique, right? Because we want to match the username and the password. First of all, find unique where, because email is unique in the database, where email is whatever we are passing. Just remove this close. So it's like the where clause we are adding. Now if this is true, after this you can select a particular properties. I wanted to select email, true, username also I wanted to return, and the password, because password match we have to do that. We haven't done the password match. So from the where clause we are returning these 3-4 properties, and here we can say if we got the user object, that means user exists in the database. We have to create a match with the password for the password. So here we can just do is bcrypt.compare is the method, and here we are comparing the password which we got it from the payload body and user.password. And if both are, if we found the match, then what we need to do? If we got the match, that means user exists in the system with the exact same email and password. So we can return the required things from the API. We can return the email. Okay, email is user.email, and here username, and we also have a token property. So we are calling generate token from somewhere, and we are passing the user object. So it's all about like how to generate the token when you are passing some kind of a payload. You can use some kind of a secret key and the expiry, and with the help of all these things you can generate a token. So here I am using one utility, and inside that we can create that method utils. Let's say I'm calling that as a token utils, token utils dot ts file. That is nothing but okay, how to generate the token using jwt.sign, your user object, secret, and the expiry. Okay, let's keep it any, or we have to define the user model first. User model contains all the attributes about the user, because user model we are using at a lot of different places. So let's create a user model. I mean, in TypeScript it's better to define all the models. User.model.ts, and here we can say export interface user and define all the properties. ID is of type number. I mean, it's all about all the columns which we have added in the database. This is of type string, that is required. Email is required. Password is required. Rest all the things like we have optional properties, like say bio, which is can be string or null. Image, that is also can be a string and null. And other relationships like we have articles also, those all the other model properties we will add. Export interface user, so we can specify, we can import this user model here. That's it. So we can call this generate token method from the auth service. We have to import it. That's it. So this is all about our login and register, right? So you can see what I mean. We have done this kind of a code hundred of the time, 100 times. I mean, it's not like first time you are writing express controller and receiving the payload from the request.body and saving into the database. It's all about like how to do the same thing with the Prisma. Here we are doing just calling the create method after generating the hash password, and here we are doing the find first, find unique based on the email, and if the email is unique user has been received which is not null, we will compare the password. If password is also matched, then we will generate the token and return this payload to the user. Okay, so now let's plug in the APIs with the router. Here let's add a couple of APIs. First is register, another one will be the login, right? And then another one we can have is post login. When you are trying to pass the token in the header, then you can also call get your own user data. Okay, so I can have get user. Another thing is users login. This is HTTP post, same request response, and here we are passing request.body.user. I will use login, which I will import. Okay, I think this is imported. Then current user, so here we will call another method is get current user. Now you might be wondering like how we can get a user data. So what we are doing, what is the flow? Simple is a sign up. Okay, you know your username password, you will do the login, you will get the token from that, and then you will just hit any other protected API. When you hit any other protected API, in that case you will pass the token which you received as a bearer token inside authorization header. Okay, you will send this inside authorization header, and then protected API will decode the token, and it will extract the user from this, So we will know who is the current logged in user. I mean, this is the same flow you do with auth0 or any other kind of a login mechanism. You first do the login, you get the token, you pass the token in the authorization header, we decode the token, check the validity of the token, and from inside the token you get the user metadata. So with the whole process, if user is logged in, user token is valid, at the end you are able to capture the user information, and from that you will know, okay, this is the logged in user, and you can return the logged in user data. So here the last API is get current user. We will decide how we are going to deal with this. First of all, we have to create one middleware. What that middleware will do is that middleware will check which API is a protected API, which API is a public API. For us, let's say the user registration should be a public API, login should be public API, but when you're trying to get your own information, this should be a protected API. So here I will create some middleware. Inside our utils we can create that middleware. That middleware is, let's say, auth.ts, and I think I already imported express JWT. That middleware we can use to create a auth middleware. So const auth, here I do have, let's say this is required, so I can use JWT, which is coming from express JWT. So this library I'm using to validate the token, and this is already providing this middleware. You don't need to do a lot of things. Inside JWT you pass the object, and what all things you need to pass, you will pass the secret using which you have created the token express.env, process.env, JWT secret. If you don't have, then I'm just passing super secret. Okay, first argument is a secret, then another argument is a token. We have to pass the token, and how we can get the token, we have to define one method which is going to extract the token from the headers. And then algorithm, I mean, if it is a TypeScript we have used, then it would have been easy to pass all the parameters. These are 3 parameters, okay. And then another is we have function which we need to define, const get token from headers. So here what we are doing, let's say const get token from headers, we have to return the token, okay. So token is in the form of bearer token. So here we are getting request, inside request we have headers, inside header we are looking for authorization, and which is of type string, okay. And this will return either string or null. I mean, we are writing TypeScript, so it's better do it in the right way. So what we are checking, if there is a request dot headers dot authorization, if it is there, request dot headers dot authorization, then what we need to do is we can return request dot headers dot authorization dot split, because they will be separated by space, bearer space token, and I will return 1, otherwise I will return null. You can do the checks, okay, it is following the regex, because the token authorization should contain something like this, bearer space your token. So here we are doing this is the auth middleware. and you can pass auth.required wherever you wanted to protect the route. So let's go to our routes. Inside auth controller, if I wanted to protect this, then I can just use this. So here, from here, we are doing export default auth, and inside controller we are importing it. Auth, what's the problem here? Okay, and auth dot required, that means this is required, and we have added this middleware that will validate the token, and it will decode the token, and it will populate the user object inside the request object, request.user. This is what it does. So now I can use this API for that. So get current user, and I can pass request.user.username. Okay, and this request is of type so we have to customize the request. So sometimes we have to actually customize the request object. So what we can do is we can create a .d.ts file, user request.d.ts, and here we can say, okay, inside we are already using the namespace express, and we are overriding the definition of request. It may contain user and .username. Okay, this works now. After declaring the type definition for this request object, request.user.username, and we have to create this get current user inside our service. So we go to auth service. Inside auth service, we will be calling export const get current user. Get current user, it is doing a sync, and we are passing the username, which is I think unique, async username, and we will do all the other things here. Let's say const user, and we can do await Prisma dot user dot find unique. This is Prisma client API we are using, and we can specify the where clause where username is username. Okay, and if it is found, then select all these properties. So we are selecting only email is a true, and just return email and username, that should be enough. And we can, so after returning this, we can return the user. That's it. It's just like, okay, I'm logged in user, give me my user object. That's it. And this is being called from the controller, user login, and here we are doing get current user. String undefined is not assignable to type string. I think this will always be there. So get current user, this is always expecting a string. So what we can do is, let's go to our controller, get current user. Here we can just typecast it as a string, and this should solve our problem. Request.user.username, yeah, this is okay. So we created a simple auth APIs. Similarly, let's create an article controller. Inside article controller, because here we are going to do a lot of things. Once user is logged in, you can fetch all the articles. You can also fetch the articles by the logged in user, right? User is already logged in. We already know the username of logged in user. So you can fetch all the articles of the logged in user.